This week's Culture Profile is looking at Syria, responding to today's largest humanitarian emergency. Let's talk about the origins of this very sad emergency. So in 2011, there were protests and violence that occurred after teenage pro-democracy demonstrators are arrested and tortured. And this triggers mass demonstrations throughout Syria. 2012, fighting escalates between government forces and rebel brigades, and it reaches Syria's capital in Damascus. By 2013, 90,000 people are dead as a result of this fighting, and these numbers keep increasing. To March 2015, we're at 220,000 deaths. UN has documented war crimes perpetrated by actors on all sides of the conflict. Even poisonous gas attacks occur. The Islamic State, you may see this as ISIS or ISIL, capitalizes on the crisis and captures large sections of Syria. And they use horrific tactics to quell resistance. So the UN High Commissioner in 2015 says this is the biggest refugee population from a single conflict in a generation. It is a population that deserves the support of the world, but it is instead living in dire conditions and sinking deeper into abject poverty. So imagine, if you will, Kansas City, Missouri has a population of around 450,000. So imagine 10 Kansas Cities leaving a country. And then you see another 7 million individuals are displaced within Syria. Turkey to the north and Lebanon to the south, east, each host over 1 million Syrian refugees. Hundreds of thousands more have taken refuge in Egypt, Iraq, and Jordan. So think of the global conflicts that have happened in Iraq, and even Iraq is receiving refugees from Syria. The surrounding countries have attempted to meet these needs, but their resources are strained. And so the UN states that Syria's development status has regressed by 4 decades as a result of this crisis. We have to recognize that in the Fertile Crescent, we have so many different religions, and that affects a lot of intercultural conflict. Sunni Muslims take up the majority, about 75% almost, of the pre-conflict Syrian population. 10 to 15% made up of Alawite Muslims. They adhere to a branch of Shia Islam, and Sunni Muslims and Shia Muslims disagree as to who the successors were after the Prophet Muhammad. As you can see, 85% of the world's Muslims are Sunni, so the Shia are a minority worldwide. Even in this very strong Muslim country, there are 10% of Syria's population who are Christians. And there are other smaller religious sects that are Muslim, including the Druze group. Kurds make up the largest ethnic minority in Syria. They're mostly Sunni Muslim, but there are also some Kurds who are Yazidi. It's another religion that combines aspects of Christianity, Judaism, Zoroastrianism, and Islam. So we're going to talk about the world's response and then the U.S. response. The world's response was to provide aid in place, so helping Syrians stay in Syria or resettlement to another country. Humanitarian aid. So in 2015, the UN requested almost $7.5 billion for activities inside Syria and in neighboring countries, and 35% of the needed funds have been pledged by donor countries. So there's aid for helping people within Syria. We also have resettlement. And resettlement countries have offered 88,000 places for refugees since 2013. And this is probably old data. Just under 2,000 refugees departed the region for third countries in 2014. So, regional countries in Europe have taken most of these refugees. Again, this is old data, so these numbers may be even higher now. But Turkey hosts almost 2 million Syrian refugees. Lebanon, over 1 million. More than 600,000 in Jordan, which is right next door to Syria. And 100,000 in Egypt, which is to the south past Israel. So the regional countries right next to Syria are taking a lot, but even as far away as Germany, they're expecting to take in as many as 1 million asylum seekers this year. And we have Germans who have pledged to help these refugees as they arrive to their communities. Canada and Australia have committed to resettling over 15,000 refugees between them. And then we have the U.S. response. So the U.S. leads the international community in providing aid dollars for this crisis, pledging or donating over $4 billion. Along with humanitarian aid, resettlement, the UN has submitted 16,000 plus resettlement referrals to the U.S. as of August 2015. Again, this is old data. There are probably more since. And just over 1,400 Syrian refugees have arrived to the U.S. this year. So, probably this was October 2014 to October 2015. President Obama called on the Department of State to ensure the resettlement of 10,000 Syrian refugees between October 2015 and September 2016. So within the U.S., again, this is 2015 data, I believe, around 1,650 Syrian refugees have arrived since 2010, 1,500 arriving in 2015. They're young, 85% under the age of 40. Many are Muslim, but not all. Typically, most have had some education. Many have finished middle or high school, and most speak Arabic.